Hello and welcome to our program, Where God Weeps, a program where we talk about the situation of the suffering church around the world. Today we're going to be considering the country of Malaysia, a country of some 23 million, of which 60% are Muslim and Catholics only number 10%. To tell us more about the story of Catholics in Malaysia, it's my very great privilege to welcome His Excellency Archbishop John Wong Su Kao, the Archbishop of the Kota Kinabalu Archdiocese in Malaysia. Your Excellency, thank you for being with us here today on our program.
It is my pleasure indeed to be here with you.
Your Excellency, you were born to Chinese parents. Was your family traditionally Catholic?
Not really a tradition because my father was a pagan. My mother is a Catholic. Yes, all of us was 11, but fortunately it's a blessing from God. We were all baptized when we were born, following the belief of my mother.
Did your father ever convert to Christianity?
Yes, later on the age of when he was 65.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience of your youth, just to give those who are with us today in our program a picture of what your youth might have looked like?
I would look at it, my youth was very joyful, very enjoyable because such a big family. You can understand such a big family.
They come together. You're number 7 of 11, if I understand.
Yes, we have 6 boys and 5 girls. Whenever we come together, we have a big fun, and then we jog together and we play together. That is the joy, that the youth that I have with a very community-minded.
When did you have a first experience of God? When did you first know you wanted to be a priest?
That was when I was in Form 3, I think.
So young?
3. Yes.
How old would that be?
Around 15, 16.
Was there one particular moment where you felt, this is it, this is what I want to do? Was it a person? Was it a moment?
It's more or less a person coupled with a moment. A person because in that moment we was very active in the church. Active in the church in the sense that we do not have a priest that speak our language. Our language in the sense is Mandarin. In that very moment, a priest is transferred. He is a Chinese. By seeing him, a person in kind of elderly priest, looking such a big parish, that have a heart to be like him, to serve the people of God. That is more on a person. When the moment comes, when I make a deal with God,
You made a deal with him?
We got. Okay. We got in the sense that knowing that I want to move into this direction, at least I have some education, some standard. But knowing that my study is, I don't like study. So I made a deal with God. If I can improve in this area or if I can achieve a certain standard of my study, then maybe that's a sign.
And because, in fact, for 3 years before you became a priest, before you entered the seminary, you worked as a salesman. Yes. Was that also a test saying, now God, I'm going to try this now for a little while to make sure that this is, or was it, what was this period in your life?
Indeed, because after I finished my study, I achieved what I had promised God. But knowing that there is a difficulty and a fear of responding to the call. In fact, I will look at it, I'm running away in the sense that to engage myself, but it's also a blessing from God. But through the 3.5 years working as a salesman, God is a way of preparing myself to answer Him this call more certainty, with certain courage.
What would you say, if you can say, this time of your being a salesman, how did this prepare you for your priesthood?
Because I was a very inward and very introvert person. I don't like to mix around with people. This salesman really contradicts what my nature. But knowing that as a priest, if God is calling me to a priest, I can't be a very introvert that only inward looking and enclosed in myself. That 3.5 years experience as a salesman helping me to reach out to people, how to talk to people, how to mix around with people.
In the seminary, one of the educations was English, which you called a real torture.
Yes.
But you wouldn't believe it today. Your English is very, very good.
Yes.
But why was it so difficult?
In the sense that because when I was small, living in this Chinese community and the family, but I do not, if I can recall, I do not have a big ambition in my life. That's why in terms of study, I was still always below moderate and never get into the language of English, especially from the Chinese family. Chinese is okay, but not English. But when I know that going to be a priest, one of the subject that you cannot avoid is English. It's really a torture for me. In fact, it's made me really a struggle whether I should pursue and then go into the seminary life.
Really? It was such a block for you?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And now you've been asked, you are now the Archbishop of Kota Kinabalu Archdiocese. What was your reaction when you heard of your nomination?
It was really indeed a very big surprise to me, because never dream of, never think of, because there's so many priests that are more capable, more seniority in the priesthood and the ministry. It's really a big surprise. When you come to me, in fact, there was a couple of few days that I could not know what to do. Don't even know, have a good sleep in a sense.
You wanted to push it away, or did you? What was your reaction? Did you thought, God, what is it now that you ask of me?
Yes. In fact, I'm already prepared to say no in the sense. But after weeks of discernment, what really made me to take up this appointment, so-called, is first is because I look at it, it's a call from God to the Holy Father, and also in the process of my discernment, especially when I look at the cross. If I just suddenly a question that dawned to me, if the person on the cross say no to the Father, will the salvation come? That really struck me. If I say no, what will the consequence in the sense? As a person who are on the cross, if he say no, will the salvation come to us?
So you took it on as your cross?
That is also my cross.
Your Excellency, I want to talk a little bit now about Malaysia. Malaysia is 60% Muslim with a very, very small Christian minority. How do you see your role as a minority church in Malaysia?
Even though Malaysia is a Muslim country, national religion is a Muslim. Of course, indeed, the Christian is only a minority of about 10%. I think in this minority, more so we as a pastor or the shepherd of the people should be the model, and then stand up to lead the people, to strengthen them, to guide them, so that, because I feel that more and more young people especially looking for the real meaning of life. And this real meaning of life is only, I think, is a person that will come down from heaven that can give. That's why I will say that I see a hope, even in minority. We have to constantly stand up as a real model that can give the real meaning of life for the people who search for this.
How is the impact of the church in society? Do you have the ability to have schools, for example, or what other social clinics, healthcare? Where is the church active and able to be active in Malaysia?
In this personal moment, of course, before we have a lot of missionaries. Missionaries came in to start other schools, sometimes even the nursing houses. But because the government now slowly taking over, but we still remain certain schools that we can have in control. Other than having activities, conducting activity conferences within the church compound, church facilities, we can still have a lot of says in the school. That is a way that still keeping up to in the way of to evangelize people, to help people, to guide the people, and to pastor the people.
A little bit bigger, how are the relations now between the Christian community and the Muslim majority? For the past 30 years, for example, there has been, if you will, a political Islam, where there has been one set of laws for the Muslim community and another set of laws for everybody else. Why these two sets of laws? And secondly, what is the impact for the minority community? Is there a disadvantage of having a separate set of laws, or is it more or less actually a protection for the minority groups?
I would say it in the other way. In a certain sense, yes, there are certain two sets of law. One is a state law, is a government law that applies to everybody. One set of law is called Sharia law. This only applies to those who are Muslim.
The Sharia.
Yes, Sharia law. All the Muslims are governed by this law. In fact, this Sharia law is protecting in the sense that those are Muslim, but not allowing them, so-called, to convert to other religion.
So they are forbidden by law in order to convert.
To convert.
What happens if a Muslim, maybe I diverge a little bit, what happens if a Muslim young person comes to you and says, Your Excellency, or Father, in this case, I wish to become a Christian? How do you answer?
Of course, this is a very sensitive kind of area that we have to be very careful. We always tell the person who want to convert from Muslim to, for that matter, to any religion. Well, not that we the church that do not welcome them. The church is always open the door for everybody to come in. But we have to let them know what's the consequence that the Syria or the Muslim or the government will come and look for him because he is a Muslim.
And what would be the consequences for that young Muslim?
Yes, if he is a government servant, immediately he will be demoted, he will be sacked from the job. He will do not have the privileges as the Muslim that has. He may even under a lot of persecution, a lot of suffering. The government will come and then pacify him. Or even in the last moment of his death, he is not allowed to bury in other cemetery rather than in the Muslim cemetery.
And the family, what is the social pressure from the family? There would also be a question of honor from the side of the family as well, I suppose.
Yes. Is any Muslim brothers that convert to any religion, the whole family will, in the sense that they will be rejected by the family, they'll be so-called or cut off from the family. This is the consequence.
Your diocese, archdiocese, has been growing. Catholics make up 10% of the population, but there has been a growth among the Catholic faithful, so much that you've had to be adding masses, which is good news, is happy news. Where is this growth coming from? Is it coming from an influx from outside, or is it simply the growth of the faithful? And why is there such a happy growth of the faithful in your archdiocese?
In the sense, this is God's blessing. At this moment of time, in the East Malaysia, especially the place where I come from, still a lot of people that hunger for things. All the personnel that we have, such as priests and catechists and sisters, they are working very hard to the conversion program. We call it RCIA. Every year we have thousands, sometimes a few thousands, converting into the Catholic Church. Of course, we based on after their conversion, we want to help them to grow in their faith, especially based on the Word of God and also the sacrament, especially the Eucharist. That some masses are increasing so that they help them to strengthen, to nourish, to progress in their faith.
You spoke of a spiritual hunger, a spiritual thirst. Is it secularization? Is it materialism? Or where is this spiritual thirst coming from in Malaysia that there is such an interest in faith?
It's more on materialism. Of course, through the influence, through the progress of the country, even those young people now can get everything within their fingers. But at the same time, they know this can give them a real meaning. This thing can last forever. And they are very often they are jumping from one to another. It is a sign that they are really looking for something that's really substance, can really give them the meaning of life, give them some really real joy and happiness that they can really hold on. And
the growth of the Catholic Church and the Christianity in general is wonderful, but of course there's the growth of Islam. In fact, Islam is growing faster. Is this also as a consequence of the government promotion and the fact that Christians are considered inferior? Or why is Islam also, or why is it growing faster?
Of course, in a certain sense, we may feel that there's an inferiority complex in us, because the whole government they are using different tactics or strategy how to convert the people.
What would be some of these tactics or strategies?
Sometimes they go into the rural area, they build a school, and in the school they will implement the Muslim program, the Muslim teaching.
A Quranic school, if
yes.
you will.
But at the same time, there's also a lot of migrants are coming over from Indonesia and Philippines in order to get a citizenship. Very often you will hear, they can get an identity card to become Malaysian, if they agree to become a Muslim.
Is the religion indicated on the identity card?
Yes.
So it's difficult for a Christian. Does it mean that he has a discrimination if, for example, he wishes to apply for a government job, he wishes to be a professor, he wishes to be a police officer? Are there restrictions on Christians? That is, they see the identity card and they think, oh, you're a Christian, because there is this law, one for Muslims and another one for Christians.
This is also one of the areas that we, as a minority, feel being threatened and feel oppressed in a sense. Because if you are a Muslim, you can get the higher position. If you get the government servants, it's more easier. You are given the priority. There are also the second class, so-called those are local. They are considered Bhumiputra. They are even better. They have more opportunity than the non-Bhumiputra. Non-Buddhist Buddha will belong to the race of Indians, Chinese.
So they would be different religious groups, just not Christians.
Yes.
But you're not forbidden for example, do you have Christians in government? Are there Christians in the universities? Is there a presence or not at all?
Now, because of the constant struggle, constant fight, especially in terms of education into school, the government now allow us to teach catechism, so that's in the school, that if we want to have personnel or in the school that agree to run the program.
You have now 1 million Catholics in the country. How many priests do you have serving these Catholics?
In my archdiocese, we have only around 33 active.
For
active
a population of how many Catholics in your archdiocese?
Around 200,000 Catholics. Yes.
33 priests for 200,000 is a...
And we have 19 parishes and around 40 sub-parishes and around over 200 outstations. Indeed, we have only 33 that we have not enough priests at this moment.
How are these very rural areas? I mean, they must only see a priest perhaps once a month.
You are right. You are right. Because but the good thing is we have trained a lot of catechists. Where the catechists are around 200 over catechists. That these catechists are sent every week to the villages. Indeed, these kind of villages, sometimes they have me once a week, once a month, once in 6 months to have a Eucharist, to have a Mass.
They must look forward to a priest with great joy.
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Did you yourself experience having to teach and to minister in these rural areas? And what was that as an education process or a preparation process for your present role, if you will?
Yes, I was. When I was a seminarian, before I was ordained, even after I was ordained, before I was a priest, because when you are posted in the parish, you have an opportunity to travel in such a way, such a rural area, to enjoy, to see their life, to experience their life, how actually a Catholic that living so far, what is their need or what is their desire.
And what would their principal needs be? Is it to bless the marriages, to baptize the children, or is it really the primary sacraments that they are seeking, or is it also evangelization?
You are right, just how you are saying that actually they are longing for the Eucharist. For the Eucharist, yes. They are very happy to see a priest coming to say the Eucharist. They are really, really well prepared for the Eucharist.
They have an understanding that, I mean, perhaps it's maybe it's not fair to say it like this, but the people in the villages, they would be rural, they would perhaps not have a certain education. Would they have an instinctive love for the Eucharist, or is it simply through the good work of the catechists that have prepared them to understand that this is the body and blood of Christ, and their hearts have been opened to this reality? How would you say, is it nature or is it nurture?
I think it's more nurture to the knowledge imparted to them by the catechist. Sometimes it depends. It depends if their faith is not strong enough. Even the presence of the priest can make them very happy.
Just his physical presence.
Yes, because they look at the priest as someone that's special, someone that represents God. They are very much respectful to a priest.
Do you have, I only draw this example because I've traveled not in Malaysia at all, but in northeast India, and there is a similar environment where it's many tribals and rural situations. The priests are almost considered like doctors. That is, the people will come to the priest and ask for a blessing and say, "Oh, Father, I also have a bad shoulder. Can you bless my shoulder?" Do you have a similar relationship, or do the priests also have a similar relationship with the villagers in this context?
In a sense, sometimes they too respect a priest. So they thought that the priest can do anything for them. As you say, not only saying the Mass, after the Mass, they will ask you to bless anything. Whatever they bring the children to you, ask you to bless. If any sickness, they will ask you to bless. They will also ask you to bless the house, to bless the land, everything.
Coming back to the question of catechists, is this where you see the future of the church in Malaysia? That is, that perhaps the priestly vocations are not there. We come to the priestly vocations in a minute. But catechists, and what is the importance of the lay community to the growth of the church in Malaysia?
I see two things in forming the catechist that are important to the catechist. The first is because as the Pope says, these are the so-called army in the diocese. This army that they are staying with the people, moving with the people, knowing the life of the people. we have to make full use or train them well, and then make full use as a part of the evangelization program to send them and then to evangelize, to help the people that some are so difficult for us, we have no time to reach them.
In Burma, in Myanmar, they have a program called the Little Evangelizers, where young people are sent out 2 by 2 and they travel often. They give often 2 weeks or 3 weeks of their life to go out into the villages. How do you send out yours? Do you also send them out 2 by 2? Do you have certain conditions, for example, that you would say, okay, they have to have a certain formation and they are only allowed to act in this particular manner, especially in an environment where, in your case in Malaysia, it's sometimes hostile, that is, they're working with a Muslim community, for example?
This group of catechists, every week we have every week they will come together to go to the Sunday reading, the Bible sharing, and then after the Bible sharing, the priest will give some input or some explanation, and then on that particular Sunday, they are sent to the different chapel, outstation that are assigned to them, and they will carry on the message that they have got from the meeting to the people.
And how are they received? They come fresh, for example, to a village which is a Muslim village, and they come as Christian catechists. Have there been cases where the Christians have been chased out of the village because of the fact that they say, we don't want to see you here? Is there any tension like that, or have they actually in principle been well received by the villagers?
At this moment of time in Sabah and Sarawak, the East Malaysia, we are still very peaceful, living quite harmoniously with the Muslim, with the other religion.
Do you have local vocations? Do you depend a lot on missionaries coming from abroad? How is the mix, if you will, and how do you see your pastoral mix in the future? Is it something where you will see that for some years to come you will be dependent on foreign missionaries, or is there enough of a growth from the young people that you see a future of local vocations?
In terms of the vocation, the young people, local people are responding, even though it's not a big number, but every year we do find two or three.
You spoke of materialism. Do you make a distinction, that is, one thing is materialism, another thing is secularization, or are the two forces coming in at the same time and having an impact on the youth, creating a crisis of faith? I say that because in many other countries, materialism, secularization is having a deep impact on the young people, and this crisis of faith in the family has of course translated over to the crisis of vocations. Do you see this also in Malaysia, or have you separated the two, where you have materialism and secularization is not such a dramatic problem at the moment because the people perhaps are more religious by nature?
But indeed, because Malaysia, especially in Sabah, in my archdiocese, it consists of different culture and different races, and these two impacts, secularization and materialism, attack certain so-called culture, races more than the others. For example, you have the Chinese. These two forces that attack them very much help. Because of that, the whole family settings become very secular, very independent.
Why would it particularly affect the Chinese culture more than, for example, in other cultures in Malaysia? What is it about the Chinese that draws them much more to the secularization or materialism?
Maybe in the sense of for survival, because the Chinese is considered in the sense that they are the non-Bumiputra. Everything that depends very much on what they earn, what they got. Is seldom get the opportunity or privileges from the government, the help from the government, and because of this, their family getting very independent, very in the sense that it's very strong, but at the same time it's also getting lesser a small family because maybe of survival.
Your Excellency, so we've spoken about politics, the economic situation, the spiritual development and growth and the happy growth of the Catholic Church. What would you say would be your need in your archdiocese that we could communicate with those who are with us today in our program, both perhaps spiritually but also materially?
We need prayer. We need prayer, especially knowing that the Islamization is getting stronger and stronger by the government. We need prayer that hopefully in this kind of struggle, in this kind of persecution, we still have a strong faith, so-called, to fight to the end.
Yes.
Secondly, I would say that prayer in terms of vocation. Hopefully more and more young people will realize the need to respond to the call of God, to need to stand up, to be witnesses, to be shepherd, to lead the people, because this is, I think, the whole world is lacking of the meaning, the real meaning, the genuine meaning of life, and especially more so to pray for the more vocation in terms of the Chinese speaking.
Chinese community is an area you need
Yes.
help, prayers.
Prayer. Because even though we have vocation, most vocations come from the local people. We do not have a Chinese speaking vocation.
I want to touch just very briefly, you said the persecution. Do you find that this discrimination, we can say, I suppose, does that make a deeper commitment? Does that, the fact that you're in an environment where you are a minority church, and not only a minority church, but you are discriminated against, do you find that consequently you have a greater commitment of the faithful because they are in a difficult environment?
Both way. If a person with a optimist, if you, as you say, they will stand out, will be more committed to the faith. If the person is very pessimist, because they have a lot of migration, moving out, moving into the Australia, moving out in New Zealand, moving out from the country.
So you're losing Christians as a consequence also of the discrimination. They say, for my family, my children, I prefer them raised in Australia or other countries.
Because they got more opportunity, the working environment, the living environment is much considered in the sense that better than at home.
But also religious freedom.
Yes.
Your Excellency, lots to talk about. Thank you very much for having been with us today on our program. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today on Where God Weeps. And if you'd like to know more about the work of the Catholic Church, the situation of minority Catholic Church in Malaysia, I would encourage you to look at the contact information at the end of this program. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.